Unlocked and into the dark. Some things are better left unknown. And I'll never find you here, 'cause no one's ever What's the truth in this riddle? Is love really just this simple? I can't seem to find my way in this world that never stays. She's a sneaky hider. Hide the lies and the alibis. What a sinner, is it in her? Is this real? Just illusion. I'm lost in wonderland of confusion. I'm lost in wonderland of confusion. Is this real or just illusion? Manifestation or a dark delusion? Is this real or just illusion? I'm lost in a wonderland of confusion.
Don't you wish that your weekend was longer than just 2 days? Well, if so, then you're in luck, because here on Ripon Common Sense Radio, our weekend begins on Wednesday. Yes, you heard that right. Our weekend kicks off every Wednesday at 7 p.m. Pacific, 10/9 Central, with Dark Wolf's Den, starring yours truly, Jerry the Dark Wolf. But that's where the fun has only just begun. Make sure you come back every Thursday through Sunday at 7 p.m. Pacific, 10/9 Central, for the Ripon Rabbit Hole Live Show, starring AJ the Ripon Rabbit. He dives into the archives of vocal legend Art Bell and brings those stories up to date. So make sure that you spend your extended weekends with the Animals Radio, Jerry the Dark Wolf, and AJ the Ripon Rabbit, starting at 7 p.m. Pacific, 10/9 Central, every Wednesday through Sunday, right here on Ripon Common Sense Radio.
Ripon Rabbit Hole is a community-driven radio. At times the community comments may reveal prejudices and other beliefs that we or our sponsors do not condone. Views or opinions expressed by the community, callers, or guests are those of the individual speaking and do not represent the views or opinions of this site. Ripon Common Sense content is intended for mature audiences only.
This is Cynthia Sue Larson with Reality Shifters and the International Mandela Effect Conference, and you're now listening to Dark Wolf's Den Show on Ripon Common Sense Radio.
Is now the ultimate power in the universe.
This is your man Meta, aka Propagate This Light, and you're now listening to Dark Wolf's Den.
Are ghosts real?
We had 1,000 hours of continuous communication with the spirit world.
Does time travel actually exist?
The laws of physics seem to be compatible with time machines.
You know, sometimes I wonder about reincarnation. Don't you?
A 4-year-old boy in Adelaide, Australia, has told his parents that he used to be Britain's Princess Diana.
What would happen if the world found out that aliens were real?
I didn't say disclosure would be easy, but what is the alternative?
To establish a space force as the 6th branch of the armed forces.
We have so many questions and yet so little time, so to have you here, the pleasure is all mine.
Coming to you from a secret mountain cave, hidden deep within the Idaho wilderness, this is the Dark Wolf's Den Show. Now, here is your host, Jerry Hicks.
That's right, I am Jerry Hicks, also known as the Dark Wolf, and welcome back to another episode of the Dark Wolf's Den Show. Whether you're on the edge of reality, the edge of the galaxy, the edge of your seat, or anywhere in between, we're glad you chose us to be right there with you. Ladies and gentlemen, tonight is September 9th, 2020, and tonight we're going to talk about glitches in the Matrix. Some people say the reality is a simulation. Could it be? Could it really actually be? No one really has been able to define reality yet. Perhaps it is a simulation, but if so, do we have case files that are strange enough to back up this idea? Actually, ladies and gentlemen, we have a ton, and we're going to cover a good portion of those tonight, September 9th, 2020, on the Dark Wolf's Den Show. But first, today in history. On this day in 1776, the Second Continental Congress made the term United States official, replacing United Colonies. That is a landmark day if you ask me. Ladies and gentlemen, that is this week's Today in History. And that is, of course, a very incredibly patriotic day today. What an incredible today in history. Speaking of incredible, last week we had a very incredible synchronicity. And could synchronicities be just one of many glitches in the Matrix? I don't know. If so, we glitched out really good this time, because last week's episode on the Schumann resonance really intriguingly coincided with the Schumann resonance doing something that it's never been seen doing. It literally flatlined into perfect harmonics for almost 48 hours, and I am yet to get a definitive answer as to why that happened. I've heard a lot of speculation, but I've not heard a definitive answer out of the scientific side as to why this happened. Maybe it was equipment malfunction, but I've not even heard that from them yet. So we will keep our ears peeled on that story right there. But what an incredible timing, because what you guys didn't know is that I almost did that show a week prior But I decided that I wasn't ready. I didn't feel that I had the information ready in my head to go forward with it yet. So I said, no, I'm going to wait a week. And I'll be darned if I hadn't waited that week, it would not have lined up like it did. So what an incredible synchronicity, an incredible glitch in the Matrix. And what we're going to hear tonight are a lot of case files that are just that, glitches in the Matrix. Could reality be a simulation? And maybe it can. I don't like the theory. I've not been any kind of quiet about the fact that I don't like the idea that we are a living, walking, breathing simulation. But just because I'm opposed to this idea, does that mean that it's wrong? Absolutely not. Because science said that it actually may be more right than wrong. But we'll get to that maybe in the second half. We'll see how far we go there. But ladies and gentlemen, tonight I want to start out with a couple stories to explain to you, to show you the idea of a glitch in the Matrix.
People all over the world have reported items duplicating or doubling right in front of them. Same marks, same inscriptions, and the exact same color. Is this some type of glitch in the holographic field that accidentally produces the same energy? Or just a simple case of forgetfulness? The two brooms. This story seems a lot less glitchy than others, but I felt I should share it here. I decided to work from home today, as it would give me the opportunity to get some chores done around the house. I went to do laundry this morning and was greeted by something that truly perplexed my mind. I now apparently own 2 identical brooms and dustpans. Here's a picture. Both of these brooms show relative signs of wear and tear, and the dustpans even have dust around the edges. I live alone and have lived in my condo for years, so this isn't something that I missed. The only other person to come into my home recently is my girlfriend. However, she takes public transit to get here, so there's no means for her to bring a broom into my condo without me being aware. This is absolutely true and absolutely startling. I now have 2 of the exact same broom and dustpan.
And of course, that is a very simple example of a duplication glitch. And I just wanted to start off with something simple to give you guys an idea. There are also many, many other kinds of glitches. We're going to stick with duplication. Just one more story.
So just recently, my wife and I bought some cheap toys to give to local kids that we know before Christmas. The kids love the toys, especially the 2 girls who got a stuffed troll doll each, one pink and one purple. Last night, we see on Facebook that one of the girls is proudly holding up 2 of these toys in a picture with the caption, "Our house is being taken over by pink trolls." We thought it was kind of strange because we distinctively remember buying one pink and one purple troll. So we asked when the girl got another one, and her parents told us that they had no idea where it came from. Their daughter just went upstairs that day and came running back down super excited, shouting that her dolls had multiplied. My wife and I found it a bit unnerving. The parents aren't the kind of people to lie about not knowing, and the girl is only 5 years old, so she couldn't have gone and purchased it herself. Next time I see them, I'm going to take a picture and see if both of them have the same tags or not. I really don't know what to make of it, other than her trolls multiplied.
That sure makes it cheap as a parent. The toys themselves just multiply themselves. That's much cheaper. But really, kids come up with strange things all the time, strange toys. Maybe a friend come over and had one just like it, or, I'm willing to let little small stories like that go, what ifs. But it's when you get a pile of stories like that.
The 2 pink lighters. This has to be some type of mistake in the Matrix. In the back of my mind, I'm always thinking that we're living in a simulation, and I've seen a fair share of strange coincidences since I moved to my country of study. I live in a house with 3 other people who never go into my room. So I bought 3 large pack of Bic lighters, and 2 ran out. I brought the last one to a party and somehow lost it, so a girl gave me a pink mini Bic lighter. Now, this is the first time I have ever seen it in pink. I didn't even know they made it in that color. That was 6 days ago, and I've been using that one small lighter ever since. So I wake up this morning, and now there are 2 pink lighters. Yes, 2 pink lighters in my possession. There is no explanation as to where this came from. It's as if the Matrix made a mistake and somehow duplicated the Bic lighter. I went to a park yesterday to celebrate 420, and I definitely came back with only 1 lighter since I put my pants in the wash immediately. There is no explanation. My friends think I'm crazy, but I know something strange is going on. I just checked the lighter fluid in the second pink lighter, and it's the exact same level as my other one. So basically stating, the unique pink lighter that I received duplicated itself. So now I have 2.
And I too have a glitch in the Matrix story, believe it or not, that has happened to me. I have an item that I use every single day, and it's got a very specific spot that it goes every day. So I had set it down in that spot, and I'd went to work, and I'd come home, and the item was not where it belonged. So I started searching around, thought maybe I dropped it, maybe I didn't put it back, all these different ideas, maybe it fell. So I start looking around, I start digging around, I can't find it. So where it was supposed to be is a table that I used to sit on. Well, I took my arm and I swiped the entire table, everything on it, moved everything, swiped my arm across it. If it was on that table, it would have fallen on the floor at that point. So after being frustrated, not being able to find it, I stood up, turned my back to the table and said, "Can I please have it back?" Turned around and looked, and it's sitting dead center of the table, right where it should have been to begin with. There's no way it could have been there. Like I said a moment ago, I literally swept the entire table with my arm. There was nothing there. And then it was. It was a real glitch in the Matrix moment for me. I'm glad I got my object back, but it really blew my mind. And it's those kind of experiences that glitches in the Matrix can be. It ain't got to be something fantastic and fabulous. It could be just a little weird moment, just a small glitch. It doesn't have to be insane or wild or paranormal, though most of them, if not all of them, seem to be quite paranormal, because glitches in the Matrix isn't exactly something we're supposed to experience in everyday reality.
10 years ago, I was returning home from a road trip with 2 friends. I received a phone call from my parents asking when we would be arriving, and I explained that we were about 25 minutes away. About a minute later, we came around a bend. It was a full moon, and we could see the reflection from a lake below us, and other than that, the road was completely empty. Suddenly, everything went completely dark in the car. No lights from the dash or gauges or headlights on the road. The music also stopped and restarted at the beginning of the CD that we were listening to.
Albeit strange, I will admit that can be explained by an electrical failure in the car, but that's just the beginning of the story.
There was now a vehicle pulled over by the police about a quarter mile in front of us that hadn't been there a split second before. I assumed I had dozed off for just a second, as it was late. I thought it was still quite peculiar, though. After about a minute, the driver of the car tuned the music all the way down and said, "Did that just happen to anyone else?" The other passenger in the back seat sat forward abruptly and said, "I thought I just fell asleep." We then realized that the clock in the car was reading an hour later than it had just a moment before.
Now, if it was an electrical failure, I would think that the car clock would set back to 12 a.m. like it always does, right? You know, blinking 12 o'clock. Not actually set to the time an hour later than it was. That's pretty strange.
To keep ourselves from freaking out, we decided that the car had possibly had a momentary electrical failure and reset the clock to an odd time, turned off the dash lights and the headlights and the gauges, and restarted the CD player.
And I love that the poster even mentions this, that I had mentioned a moment ago, that it could have been an electrical failure. We're still being realistic here, being logical.
But when we arrived home 25 minutes later, we were 1 hour late. I am missing an hour of my life, and to this day, I have no idea how it happened.
Now, the fact that they were an hour late getting home really changes things, because that shows that for some reason an hour literally disappeared for these three people in this car. What a strange glitch in the Matrix indeed.
I had a subjectively long dream once that was very involved. I was a vendor in a fish market. I remember getting up early, dressing, doing a whole morning routine, going to get tea, heading out to the docks, buying fish, loading them into a cart, and going to get ice, then haggling for the ice, buying some less fresh fish while I was at it, and then going to a market to my stall, setting up and selling fish all day. It was so real, even though it was mundane. I talked to friends, I smoked nasty cigarettes, I haggled customers, ate lunch, had tea, and just lived through the day. At the end of the day, I cleaned up, counted my cash, paid the stall rent, went home, cooked some of the fish that I hadn't sold, and had some rice and veggies that I had traded for. I drank more tea, relaxed for a while, and then drew a hot bath, soaked and smoked some more cigarettes, and finally went to bed. The next morning I woke up refreshed, ready to go down to the docks to buy fresh catch, except I was in my house next to my wife. My truck was parked outside, and it was Saturday, not a work day. My wife and I were getting geared up to go skiing in Oregon, and the car was already packed. The weird thing was, in the dream I was single, and I am not. And I was a smoker, and I am not. And the whole long dream had been in fluent Chinese, the effortless kind of fluency that only comes from a lifetime of speaking it. And, of course, I had been Chinese. I'm a big, hairy, white dude, somewhat fluent in Spanish, and I know a little bit of Russian, but I've never known Chinese, and obviously I've never been Chinese. It was just weird. I've never worked in a fish market either. I wonder who I was, and I wonder what that was. I can't help but thinking that meanwhile in China, a fisherman woke up after having a dream about him being a big hairy white dude with a wife and a truck.
If we are living in a simulation, did the Matrix switch up and mess up the dreams between the two people and give them the wrong dreams, give them the experiences of another person? Is that even possible? Anything is possible.
This happened back in college. I was driving home from my cabin in northern Wisconsin through the Indian reservation. There was a man on the side of the road, sort of limping along, and I pulled over to ask if he was okay. He said yes, he was fine, that he just needed to get home because his wife had decided that she still loved him after they had had a fight. I asked the man where home was, and surprisingly, it was the same city where I went to college, which was about 2 hours away by car. I offered him a ride. He didn't talk much. He was tired. When we got into town, he started giving me directions. "Just down here. It's close," he said. "Take a left at the lights." "All right," I replied. "Right here," he said, pointing, after the white truck. "Here?" I pulled into the driveway. "Yes," he said. "Shut up." "What?" he asked. He was grinning like he knew what I was going to say next. "I used to live here," I told him. "You don't say," he replied. "Yes, upstairs in apartment number 3. "Yeah, that's our apartment too." Now he was smiling from ear to ear. Small world, eh? He thanked me for the ride and got out of my car and walked through the front door of my old apartment building. I know it was probably just a coincidence, but it was still one of the strangest moments of my life.
And of course, coincidence isn't a word that we like here, as you guys know, but what are the odds? What are the chances of picking up somebody 2 hours away that actually happens to be going to the exact same place you are, and nonetheless going to the exact same place that you used to live? What are the odds of that one person being the person that you pick up? I'd say the odds are pretty insane. I don't know about you guys, but then again, what are the odds that we would do a Schumann Resonance show the day the Schumann Resonance does something it's never done before? So again, I would say off the charts. And are these synchronicities like this yet another piece of evidence for the idea that we live in a matrix, a simulation that every now and then glitches?
This next story comes from the Reddit user White Zombie Cat. Now, this man recounts his and his wife's experience with a glitch in the Matrix. He states that he went out with his wife for dinner one night. When he returned home, they opened the door and he saw his wife on the computer doing work. He claims that he is normally greeted with this image when he arrives home from work, except it was impossible this time because his wife was right beside him.
Could you imagine walking in and seeing somebody sitting in front of you that was also standing next to you?
Later that night, he tells his wife what he saw, and she claims that she too saw herself sitting at the computer. I mean, I was going to say maybe his brain created the image in his mind, since he stated that this is what he normally sees when he opens the door after work, but then he said that his wife saw it too. That's so strange.
Oh my goodness, the heck with if you seen the other person. What if you seen yourself sitting right in front of you? I couldn't even imagine coming home and opening the door and seeing myself staring at myself. I don't know exactly how I would handle that. That would trip me out just a little bit. But what a glitch in the Matrix that is, right? And these also could be what we call Mandela effects, wouldn't they? I would argue that glitches in the Matrix could very well be Mandela effects, and it glitches all the way back through time. These could be these huge glitches, these super glitches. And some of these case files that I've run across that would suggest just that. But the weird thing about these case files, I can't find any two case files that have the exact same circumstances. Some of them might share, some of them mention sickness, others don't. Some of them mention a light, others don't. Some of them mention all these different things, but no certain aspect comes out across all the case files, except for the fact that they're happening to begin with at all.
I was catching a sky train in one particular city, about 15 minutes from where I get off. While I was waiting, there was a woman with glazed eyes, asking people for money. She came up to me, stopped briefly, and asked, "Excuse me, could you spare some money? My brother is in the hospital, and I would like some money to buy him some flowers." That's rich, I thought. Addicts are getting more and more obvious with their lines.
And we've all been there, had that random person asking us for money for some odd reason. Usually they say, I'll pay you back, give me your address. Which, never do that if you're ever offered, never ever do that. But anyway, it's something that's relatable so far. We've all had this occurrence.
"Here's $5, I said, just wanting her to move on. I gave it to her without even looking her in the face, convinced of her intentions. Anyway, my train pulls up and I get on. I look through the glass at her walking around, asking others for money, as the train pulls away. The train arrives at the station 15 minutes later, and I walk down and out to the bus stop. There is only one bus the direction that I'm going, and just my luck, it's waiting there when I get off the train. So on the bus I hop, and I wait for the bus driver to finish reading his paper before the doors close and we embark down the highway. After about 5 to 10 minutes of traveling, the driver pulls over for a routine stop. The doors open, and to my complete astonishment, the woman from the SkyTrain walks into the bus, a dozen roses in her hand. She looks me right in the eyes as she walks past to take her seat. How the she got there, I will never know. I took the train before her. I watched her at the train stop from inside as we pulled away. I went over a river. I caught the first and only bus going this particular direction. And not only did she beat me there, she had time to go to a store and buy a dozen roses. To this day, I have no idea how this happened.
That's a pretty good distance to cover in a short amount of time, but I don't know. I can't exactly explain it. These are just a couple of the Glitch in the Matrix stories that I've found so far, and I thank you to Raven Reads, as well as Paranormal Rising, and a channel called Most Amazing Top 10. Most Amazing Top 10. So thank you guys for the use of those Glitch in the Matrix stories. And the stories, once again, we've heard here in the first half are just a very, very, very small slathering of the stories that are available with the glitches in the Matrix. And we'll pick up with even more of this in part 2 and what is causing these glitches. Now that we've heard some of the case files, let's dig in and see if we can't find some answers to what is going on. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm Jerry Hicks, also known as the Dark Wolf, and we'll be back with the second half of the Dark Wolf's Den Show right after these messages. Don't you touch that dial. Oh, yeah.
We gotta stoke the fires and run off the men in black. Don't touch that dial. We'll be right back.
Sex in the city? Nope. Interview with a vampire? Nope. If you build it, they will come? Febreze? Tweeze in the middle? Wrong again. Depends. Nope. Welcome to the Twilight Zone, my friends. A phenomenon known as the Mandela Effect. You may have heard of it. You may want to not neglect. Unbecoming, awake, and spiritually inclined. So sit back, relax, while I blow your mind. Take the thumb off the cell, stop following the sheep. Down the rabbit hole we go. Are you ready for that leap? The Zapruder film, #JFK. I looked at the footage and I said, what the heck? How come there are 6 people in that dang car? Stretch limo, for me, this was all too bizarre. A glass behind the driver, no way, Jose. I remember in the car, my mind was in total disarray. Trying to make sense of what I was seeing, what I was witnessing. Didn't connect with my inner being. A second woman in the car for me was only the first lady. Do you smell what the rock is cooking? All this seemed kinda shady. Berenstein Bears. Nope. Shazam? Sinbad? Not in this reality. Good lord. An awakening. Was it all a revelation? The naysayers and skeptics call it confabulation. They say you misremembered and call us bat crazy. Did you smoke a doobie? Maybe that's why it's a little bit hazy. Unless you experience it, you'll never know. But enough of that. On with this Mandela Effect flow. Mandela Effect in the house. What in the world happened to Ed McMahon? In this reality, Publishers Clearinghouse was not a fan. Never the spokesperson, but we remember it clear as day. McMahon holding that check while the winner yelled out, yay! American Family Publishers, never heard of them until now. This Mandela Effect has me raising the people's eyebrow. So many theories on what it could be. Have you ever heard of CERN and the LHC? Luke, I am your father. Nope. Sally Fields? Nope, wrong again. That stands for the Large Hadron Collider. I thought I would mention. You know, the machine that opens up portals into different dimensions? You're probably thinking that this is all science fiction, but you gotta think outside the box and have no restrictions. Alternate realities and parallel dimensions. Okay, I get some of your apprehensions. Could this all be a spiritual evolution? Cause the human race has grown tired of this toxic pollution. Mandela Effect in the house. don't understand. That's just the way it is. You know? Stay strong, my friends. That's just the way it is. Dolly has no braces? Are you serious? Good lord. Joel Osteen. Oh wait, Joel Osteen. So what the heck happened to the L? Oh my gosh. Oh, this is definitely the Twilight Zone. This is crazy.
That's right. Anyways, says Juanito1975. Big shout out and a thanks to your email today. Let me know. I was actually thinking about you and trying to figure out what exactly Juanito1975 has been up to lately. He brings up a lot of interesting points that we will dive into this weekend. How about this video tonight, though? Jerry Hicks and the Dark Wolf's Den Show. If you're enjoying so far the glitch in the Matrix, please make sure to thumb up that video, hit that subscribe button, and ring that bell. You'll get our notifications every time we go live. We're here every Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday nights, bringing you the very best in common sense radio, the Ripon Rabbit Hole. I'll be back again tomorrow night, Thursday, September 10th, with a look at ghosts. They're here. Ghosts, are they here? Or perhaps we're going to find out tomorrow night, Thursday, September 10th, starting at 7 p.m. Pacific, 10/9 Central. Then Friday night, come along down the rabbit hole of elections gone bad. What good elections have gone bad, and when they do, what happens? That's Friday, September 11th, fitting for that evening at 7 p.m. Pacific, 10/9 Central. Then Saturday, September 12th, predictive programming, an audience suggestion topic from our friend the Wizard Gren. Predictive programming. In a world of false flags and fake news, how can we be aware of predictive programming tactics used against us? Tune in Saturday, September 12th, and find out, and we'll end out this weekend together Sunday night with imaginary friends. Did you have an imaginary friend, or do you still have an imaginary friend? We're going to find out. And what does having this mean? If that friend still should exist, or if at one point in time a friend did exist. We're going to find out all the psychology behind it. Imaginary Friends, Sunday, September 13th, starting at 7 p.m. Pacific, 10/9 Central. My top hat's off to still the fantastic Fun King, CSFL champion, winner of a $25 gift card. Our thanks to our friends at Exclusive Local Media in Ripon, Wisconsin. We're going to return back to a glitch in the Matrix with Jerry Hicks and the Dark Wolf's Den Show, right here on the very best of Common Sense Radio, the Ripon Rabbit Hole.
If you were meant to be controlled, you would have come with a remote, but you didn't. And that's why you listen to the Dark Wolf's Den Show. Now, here is your host, Jerry Hicks.
That's right, I am Jerry Hicks, also known as the Dark Wolf, and welcome back to the second half of the Dark Wolf's Den Show. Whether you're on the edge of reality, the edge of the galaxy, the edge of your seat, or anywhere in between, we're glad you chose us to be right there with you. Tonight we seem to be hanging out right on the edge of reality with the glitch in the Matrixes. That's right. Guys, we've covered a lot of interesting case files, and like I mentioned in the first half, there's not a lot of these that have these same qualities intact. Like, they're all happening, but there's different qualities of case files and different things going on, and there's not one theme that runs across all the case files, one piece of evidence that we can look at and say, aha, there might be something there. Only thing that we know is that they're happening at all. And that kind of reminds me of the Mandela effect. there's so much randomness in the Mandela effect. We know it's happening, but we can't nail down any reason why or how because there's such randomness to it. It kind of seems like it would go together, right? Well, there's a lot of people who are starting to think that there might be a reason that all of this is happening. As we know, the glitch in the Matrix is from the movie The Matrix, when Neo sees the cat and sees the cat twice. Or when he sees the red lady in the red dress walk by, turn around, and all of a sudden it's the guy with a gun in his face. You know, different weird things like that in that movie. And those were just extreme Hollywood examples, but what we've heard tonight so far are real world examples. And now we're going to hear a real world explanation as to why all of this may be going on. Ladies and gentlemen, physicist George Smoot.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here. They asked me if I wanted a drink before I came on, and I asked for a pint, but they gave me water.
You know, we try to stay non-alcoholic around here, family friendly.
So following the other speakers, I have a change of pace, a little bit of a fun talk. And what I'm going to try and do is convince you you're a simulation and that physics can prove it.
Now, that right there, ladies and gentlemen, is an extremely bold statement for me because I am no fan of the simulation theory, like I said earlier. And like I also said earlier, because I'm not a fan of it doesn't mean it isn't true. So let's see if this guy can turn me around and make me more of a believer and a fan of the simulation theory.
Okay. So instead of a usual uplifting talk, this is a different kind of talk. Okay. So there's one thing you know for certain, that is that you exist as a flesh and blood human being. My goal is to convince you otherwise.
That is one thing right off the bat that bothers me about simulation theory is that when I pinch myself, for instance, I feel pain. And I mean real pain. I don't mean simulated digital pain. It really hurts when I pinch myself. How about you?
Okay. So logic is not going to be enough. You guys are going to be simulation deniers. Right? I mean, there's just no way around it.
Well, he's got me pegged on that one.
So my actual goal will be to actually create a sliver of doubt in your minds so that you actually think about this and what it might mean.
All right, Doc, now you're fighting dirty. You're using my style. Just drop a sliver of an idea and let it set like a seed and let people just think about it and see where it takes them. That's pretty slick, Doc.
Okay, so here's the first check about simulations. How many of you have ever played a computer game? Just raise your hands. All right. So, did you do it against simulated player or simulated players? Or in fact, was it you, several people plus simulated people, right? And what role did you take? Was it a pawn or a hero? And what role do you have in life? Is it pawn or hero, right? Or are you the king, for example?
And we all know about the game The Sims, where you can create a whole simulated reality, put your own people in there. I used to have friends who would create Sims of their friends, things like that. I actually enjoyed the architectural building part of that game. It was really fun to build some of those houses, but that aside, we all know about The Sims and the virtual simulated world that exists within that game, as well as games like Spore and a couple of others now that have hit the market.
I don't see him here, but now the other thing you might ask, if you were a social scientist or other kind of scientist like a cosmologist, would you like to run realistic simulations to test and develop your theories? Likewise for political candidates, right? So I'm just trying to see there's motivation for it. And then the question is, are computation and simulation capabilities increasing over time? So they had to think about Moore's law. Think about what computer you had when you were young and what you have when you're now. Not that you're not all young still.
And as we talked about in the paranormal technology episode, in our lifetimes, we have seen an absolute jump in technology. It has incredibly increased from the time we were kids, because I remember joking about video conferencing and how I would never ever be in my lifetime where I could have video or use video conferencing. It was hundreds of years off still. And now in our day and time, it's commonplace. I use video conferencing literally every day now. And that just boggles my mind. The increases we've seen in technology, even in my own lifetime, has been nothing shy of incredible.
My dance with simulation theory started about 10 years ago when I watched a wonderful film called The Truman Show. Spoiler alert, the main character, played by Jim Carrey, he finds out that everybody in his life is an actor and that his entire world is artificial. This is the scene when he finds out that the sky that he grew up admiring and loving was simply painted onto a wall. When I watched this movie, I'll be honest, it scared me. It scared me, but it fascinated me. It made me want to learn more.
And like Oleg Maslov here, I also find that a very scary yet fascinating thought. Not that I like it, but it is a very fascinating thought that we could literally be in a made-up reality. And as a kid, did you ever have that thought that you were really in the middle of a TV show? Or there was some cameras behind the scenes somewhere you didn't see? I don't know, maybe I watched too much Candid Camera as a kid, I don't know.
So I started watching more movies, like The 13th Floor, The Matrix, Dark City, Vanilla Sky. Excellent movies that make you think, that make you question. But the movies, they didn't satisfy my curiosity. So I started to do more research.
And of course, around here, research is our favorite pastime.
Turns out, simulation theory is older than the Bible.
Did you know that? That the simulation theory was actually older than the Bible? I just learned something new myself, ladies and gentlemen.
Greek philosopher Plato came up with a thought experiment. He imagined, what if there were people who were taken as babies into a cave and chained to a chair to look at a wall, and behind them was a fire. Objects would move in front of the fire and cast shadows onto the wall. And the prisoners, not knowing anything else in their entire life, would believe that the shadows were the real thing. They would believe that the simulation was the reality.
And that is, of course, Plato's allegory of the cave, which is really interesting thought. I never really seen it quite like that. I always seen it as an allegory of not quite seeing the truth and just believing what was thrown in front of you. But I never really seen it as a simulation theory argument. So now that is interesting to me.
A simulation is an artificial model created to imitate a real-world process. Remember this word imitate. It's going to come back. It turns out that we humans, we make a lot of different types of simulations ourselves for many different reasons. Professionals such as pilots and surgeons, they have very dangerous jobs. Any mistake with the operating knife can cost somebody their life.
I could see how simulated bodies and simulated performances would definitely be much better for a surgeon, say, to practice with than, I don't know, a living human or anything.
So they train their skills in simulations, like flight simulators, so that they won't have to practice on real people. Crisis simulations allow us to predict when natural disasters will strike and how they will affect our infrastructure. Politicians use public opinion simulators to predict how they will perform in an election. And companies use similar simulators before they launch new products. But this isn't the most common type of simulation.
And I myself never realized what wide use of simulation technology there actually was. I know about a lot of cosmologists who do a lot of universal simulations, and I've actually got a simulation program on my computer called Universe Sandbox, which allows you to play around in a simulated universe that is supposed to be much like our own.
So we have in cosmology lots of things. We have the ontologic principle. That is a philosophical concept that the universe must be compatible with conscious life that observes it. And there's a strong version and a weak version. One of them that says the universe is compelled to have conscious life emerge. And the other says that the universe is fine-tuned for life to be necessary.
You see, there are 4 fundamental forces that make up the entire universe, according to science. And according to science, these are set so perfectly that if they were off even a hair, life itself could not exist. This has always bothered science because they couldn't figure out, and still to this day can't completely 100% tell you, why these are set exactly to the numbers they are. The weak nuclear force, the strong nuclear force, the electromagnetic force, and gravity. Nobody knows why they are set to the exact functions that they are set at, or the exact numbers, exactly why they are the way they are in order to create life. If they were off even just a little bit, even one of them, life itself could not exist in this universe.
And this is pretty much in line with a lot of even more specific kind of ideas from conservative Christianity and Islam, that there's intelligent design, or it could be like a simulation.
Which one could argue would be one and the same, an intelligently designed simulation of some type.
So this is I'm working on you some. And we also have the idea of multiverses, that there are many different kinds. There's a meta universe, and there's many possible universes inside of it, and there are different reasons for that, quantum mechanics, but also a way to explain why the physical constants happen to be the ones that make this auditorium possible. Right? And so, one way is to have that many real universes, the other way is just to make a lot of simulations. Right? So.
Could the parallel universe theory actually be simulated universes parallel to each other?
Your choice. Okay, so let me move on. Here's the crux of the arguments. And these arguments have been around for more than 30 years. And they were first published 30 years ago. And what people went to a lot of trouble to show that one of these three things is extremely likely to be true. So you got your choice between number 1, number 2, and number 3. Just like the doors. Look what's behind each door. The first one is human civilization is unlikely to reach a level of technological maturity capable of producing simulated realities, right? Or it's physically impossible.
And once again, impossible is a word that we do not like or use on this show, if at all possible. However, in this particular situation, it does make you wonder, are we physically, technologically capable, or will we ever be technologically capable of creating a, quote, ancestor simulation, end quote?
Okay, so we made some progress in 30 years, and I'll mention that. The second is comparable civilizations throughout the universe, which do reach that capability, will choose not to make simulations in such a large scale that in fact the probability of being simulated being is much higher than the probability of being a real being.
So I think the argument here would be the energy needed to do it would be so ridiculous that there's no point in doing it, or civilizations would just choose not to.
Right, so those are your choices, right? There's some other choices, but they're extraordinarily unlikely, and we can pretty much rule them out. And the third choice is any entity with our general set of experiences are almost certainly to be living in a simulation. Right? That would be us. Right? Okay.
And we all have heard that Elon Musk's argument is that it's a 1,000,000,000 to 1 chance that we are actually living in base reality, and a much better chance that we're living in a simulated reality. And if we are, of course, that would definitely make good reason or ability for glitches in the Matrix.
Okay, so let's talk about how we're going to do the simulations on the Earth. Okay, let me this is part of going back to convince you that we're going to have realistic simulations, and we're going to have artificial reality to go with it. Okay, so can we take a real brain and make it into a virtual mind? And the answer is, so here's the purple real brain, and the neurons behind it is this neural net. It's the original neural net, as far as we were concerned. And then on the left,
and we have the picture in tonight's show notes to go along with this. You guys can get an idea of what he is talking about.
Yeah, your left. There is the beginnings of mapping of a brain, so that I can take and map that brain and just place it into a computer. Right?
And as we know, the elites talk about doing just that. And could that be the answer to immortality? Could uploading your consciousness to a computer and into a simulation be the essence of immortality?
How's that going to work? Okay, the answer is it's going to work just fine, because we are there to the point where we can do it now. So here is a high resolution 45-minute brain scan. It was done in February. Okay, at 45 minutes, that's how long you have to hold a person's head still in order to make a map to this level. And what you can see here are the main. Let's see if the laser pointer works. Nope. So what you can see here are the main highways in your brain. right, that are mapped out by this. And this is basically an MRI. I got a scan of my brain done, and I was really impressed to prove that I had a brain, but one of my friends got an fMRI, proved that his brain worked. And so...
Yeah, there ain't much point in having a brain if it ain't working. Kind of like the scarecrow, right?
The thing that's impressive about this is that the MRIs are getting so good now, you can map to the individual neuron level. The problem is there's a lot of neurons, so you'd have to hold the head still for a long time. And that's an advance in the ability to do the mapping and also in the software for doing that mapping.
I watched a YouTube video the other day that showed a cat with electrodes on its head, and they put an object in front of it, and although be it fuzzy, they could actually make out the object that the cat was actually looking at. The simulated object on the screen came through the brain cells and all that, and was able to be read by the machine just by the neurons that were firing. Now that I find very intriguing. So could we be in a simulation? I'm starting to get to where I'm wondering now.
And so that's where we are today. If we can hold the person still long enough, if we can find a volunteer that we can put, the little plastic thing on their head to hold their head still for some days, right, which is a little bit of a problem, we could probably go ahead and map their entire brain and then just transform that map into a computer model, and we would have that person's mind downloaded into a computer. Okay. So this is coming, and this is coming soon, just like it's now possible for, on the order of 1,000 pounds, to get your DNA mapped. It's going to cost you something in about 30 years. It's going to be possible to download your brain into a computer for about 1,000 pounds, right? Plus inflation.
So would that be creating a simulation within a simulation within a simulation within a simulation? To what level are we in? How many simulations have been run until we got here if we are a simulated reality? And is it a computer program? I have something to say on that here in just a moment.
Well, I don't know how, could go up, could go down, right? But there's tremendous advances in technology, and these are making it possible to do things that before we thought. So I have a quote from a Google expert. We'll be uploading entire minds to computers in 2045. He also says we'll do bodies too. I'm thinking we won't do bodies. What we'll do is we'll take that mind and keep it from going out of its mind. We'll put it in artificial reality, right? It's in the computer, it's going to get bored. Wants entertainment, wants social interactions, and so forth. So we're going to create artificial realities. Now, in the old days, we'd make a thing like that, if you remember the Matrix, right? Ones and zeros. Now, in fact, we may use quantum computers, so we'll have entangled states. But in fact, it'll be some kind of a complicated environment where we can interact socially, because people want to be social, so there'll have to be thousands of people to interact with, and there'll have to be all kinds of other things in order to make that artificial environment.
And how much different is that from what we see around us every day?
Okay, so now the other thing I have to do is to attack your certainty. Okay, so I have to point out to you, human beings are not good at figuring out if they're real. Okay, so the human mind is really not equipped for addressing this and many other important questions. So the first question I'm going to give you is count the number of black dots.
And if I could have the admins in the chats once again go ahead and drop the links to tonight's show notes over at riponrabbithole.com. You're going to find this picture with the black dots. And this is one of many optical illusions that AJ the Ripon Rabbit has talked about quite a few times on his show. And now we're just going to briefly touch upon it ourselves.
Okay. It's a still picture. I mean, there's no video. No. Okay, so, all right. You see this picture.
This will be the brown and white picture also over in the show notes for tonight's show.
How many of you see the horse in the picture? How many of you cannot see the horse in the picture? Once you see the horse, it's hard not to see the horse. Okay.
And how many of you guys see a horse in that picture right there? It took me a couple moments, but my eyes finally focused in and found it. But how many of you guys see a horse in that picture? Go ahead and put a 1 in the chat room if you see the horse. Go ahead and put a 2 if you completely just don't even see it at all. If you just see the snow-covered ground.
Okay, and I'm going to show you a picture of an object and ask you, can it be real? And then I'm going to tell you it's a photograph. The watch is real, the paper is real, the desk is real. Is that object real? Well, it's a photograph, so it's real in some sense, as is this. And for me, this object flips back and forth. Okay, here's the real version of that, made out of 2x4s. We call it in America anyway, 2x4s. Focused at two different angles, and you see it's an optical illusion where your eye puts it together.
And all of these pictures, once again, can be found in tonight's show notes.
And here's another example, and this is another example just for fun. You know, because you know it's just rotated, but their first response is, ooh, that's weird. Okay, so here's one you're going to get the answer to. Which of these is longer?
And if you're still over in tonight's show notes, the arrows, which one of the lines is actually longer, the top arrow or the bottom arrow?
All right, so they're the same. How come? It doesn't really look that way to you. You knew that I was tricking you, so you you understand. When you still look at it, you still think, well, but I better check now because I know I've been making mistakes. Okay, so one more, right? I'll skip the lilac tracer on the other side and just ask you about the stuff on the right. Are those lines straight or not?
And last one, are the lines straight or are they curved? I love these illusions like this.
Well, they are straight, but to your eyes, it's really hard to convince you they're straight, right? Your brain is set to do other things. All right, here's another Bayesian reasoning test in the land of Bayes, so we do it. And there's many examples you can give this, but a cab is involved in hit and run, and two cab companies are in the town, green cabs and blue cabs, right? And they operate. 85% of the cabs are green, 15% are blue. The witness says the cab was blue. When he's tested, he gets it right 80% of the time, or she gets it right 80% of the time, right? What's the probability that it really was a blue cab? You have to go through the calculation carefully. This is the only equation. Usually, when I put equations up, people go, but it's almost 60% chance that the cab was green, even though the person gets it 80% right. And this is relevant, but there are other kinds of tests like that. So you can have tests that are even more powerful, like the test for breast cancer is 99% correct. It gets the wrong answer 1% of the time, but roughly 1,000 times as many people 1,000th of people get tested actually have breast cancer. So when you get the first response that you have breast cancer, it's only a 10% chance you really do. It's not until you get the next test. And so, but the 10%, the 10 people are freaked out, right? And so humans aren't ready for dealing with that kind of thing. Okay, so it's because we lack computing power. So we have compromises in our algorithms, right? Humans, therefore, are susceptible to optical illusion, systematic errors in judgment. I'm running out of time. I should have gone faster. I got confident. Difficulty with complex decision and keeping on time, and the ability to function in a prehistoric world, which was the important one. Only a few percent of the humans got wiped out before they were able to reproduce. Okay, so simulations are going to make the same kind or similar approximates. So we have many contradictions. We could see if our physics is inconsistent, then it's likely we're in a simulation. If physics is self-consistent, it's more likely we're real.
And with things like the Mandela effect and other weird glitches in the Matrix, I would say that physics is not self-consistent as they would think it is.
Because it just takes more to do that. So then one of the implications is if we are in a simulated environment, what are we going to do? Well, we're going to have we're going to be discretized, that is fuzzy on small scale. We're going to have entangled states.
Both of which are very true. When we get down to the smallest scale that we can see with microscopes, it appears that everything is fuzzy and pixelated. And we've discussed entanglement before with the twin effect and how quantum entanglement is very much definitely a thing, and in the micro levels has been seen to have certain effects.
It means quantum mechanics. We have the holographic principle that everything inside of a given volume is encoded on the surface. So here's an example.
And this theory goes on to state that we're actually inside of a black hole and being projected from the edge of the black hole into a 3D reality.
Right. The hand and the apple are encoded on a two-dimensional sheet, but projected in the 3 dimensions. That's a way to keep track of everything. And the large scale in space and time may not match the small scale. So let me finish up. Human beings are ill-equipped for determined reality. Physics so this is actually a selling thing for physics, is a fundamental test of our realness. Currently we have contradictions. Is that because we're not good at resolving things, or is it because we're in a simulation, right? And what would that mean? Thank you.
And once again, that was George Smoot. And I gotta say, he really did kind of convince me that there might be something going on with simulation theory. Could that explain the glitches in the Matrix? Could that explain the Mandela effect? Could it explain ghosts? Could it explain most of the rabbit holes in which we study on this show? Could the not even parallel universe, but simulated universes explain everything? And if we are living in a simulation, can we go ahead and make this the best simulation ever? Can we start being good to each other? Can we make this at least a simulation that is worthwhile? Perhaps it will let us keep going, because I don't believe it's a pre-programmed simulation. I believe if it is a simulation, then it is a self-programming simulation that writes its own code as it goes, kind of like an AI would do. But I'm not saying reality's AI, no, I'm giving that as an example of writing its own code. What if the universe itself was a great big simulation that literally wrote its own code? Or what if it's all just bunkum? What if it's all just a bunch of made up hullabaloo? What if science is wrong? What if the glitches in the Matrix are just people not quite understanding the reality around them? Or perhaps there's something else going on. In the end, ladies and gentlemen, you be the judge. We got to close it out. That's right. That's it for this episode of the Dark Wolf's Den Show for September 9th, 2020. I hope everybody has enjoyed this episode in Glitches in the Matrix. I know I have really enjoyed doing it for you guys. And I hate to see it happen, but the den is closing, guys. But don't you worry, the weekend fun has only just begun. Make sure you come back Thursday through Sunday for AJ the Rippin' Rabbit's Rippin' Rabbit Hole live show. That's right, I've been eavesdropping on those rabbits over there again. And guys, I happen to know what they're going to be talking about this week. Thursday, they're going to be talking about ghosts. They're here. Could the ghost phenomenon be connected to the glitches in the Matrix, maybe? I don't think he's going to be talking about that. But maybe they are all around us. Maybe they are here. Then Friday, elections gone bad. What kind of bad outcomes have happened with the elections? We have one coming up, and what kind of things should we probably avoid? Saturday, they're going to talk about predictive programming, which is really interesting because I had it on my list of topics, and we'll get to it on our show here someday, but I've got a lot of information I've looked up on this, so I'm really intrigued that he's going to be talking about predictive programming on Saturday. Guys, does the media predict our programming or program us to accept things that are coming down the line? Does the media have a way of making us make decisions that we didn't realize we were making? This ought to be a really interesting topic from a magician's point of view, and that's exactly what you're going to get on Saturday from AJ the Rippin' Rabbit on the Rippin' Rabbit Hole live show. Then on Sunday, imaginary friends. Did you have an imaginary friend as a child? Do you still have one? Perhaps things aren't as imaginary as you might have thought they were. Ladies and gentlemen, that is the weekend lineup here on Ripon Common Sense Radio. I hope you guys come back Thursday through Sunday and enjoy our buddy AJ the Rippin' Rabbit's live show over there. I'm about to head on over to the RippinRabbitHole.com to the 24/7 Backstage Lounge. And if you would like to hang out with me, you also can come over there. We've got a great international audience, and we have an absolute blast because the conversation might end here for you guys, but for the Rippin' Rabbits, the conversation is only beginning. And I'm sure one or two of them probably have some weird glitch stories that they're ready to come out with. So I'm sure you guys would love to be back there, and it's easy to do. Just come on over to the RippinRabbitHole.com, scroll down to the 24/7 VIP Lounge, scroll halfway down that page, click the VIP entrance. It'll ask you to okay your camera and microphone. No problem there. Okay, that. And you can turn those off the moment you get in the room and hang out and text with us. There are a couple people that do just that, and we have a blast back there. Guys, you can also go down to the bottom of every page on the ripinrabbithole.com and find that big red button. Select that. You're going to be able to get us 30 seconds of audio recorded and shipped on over here to the studio to us. So if you want to give us a shout out on the air, you can easily do that. We'll get it on the air for you, just like we did with Propagate and Cynthia Sue Larson. Ladies and gentlemen, my name's Jerry Hicks, also known as the Dark Wolf. And until next week, remember, stay awake, but dare to dream. Bye, everybody. Oh, yeah.
That's right. That howl means the weekend has begun. A top hats off to you, Jerry, for a tremendous glitch in the Matrix tonight, Wednesday night, kicking off the weekend just right. If you haven't done so already, please make sure to thumb up that video, hit that subscribe button, and ring that bell. You'll get our notifications every time we go live. We're here every Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday nights, bringing you the very best of Common Sense Radio, the Ripon Rabbit Hole. I'll be back again tomorrow night, Thursday, with a special look at ghosts. They're here, or are they? And then Friday, elections gone bad. Saturday, predictive programming. And Sunday night, we'll end out the weekend together with imaginary friends. Did you have an imaginary friend? I know I did. I'm going to tell you all about them, because I had many. And we're going to open up the lines for your discussions of imaginary friends Sunday night as we end the weekend together. Make no mistake about it, it will continue on and on and on as the rabbit hole goes completely deep. Jerry Hicks will return next Wednesday night with another episode of Dark Wolf's Den. If you haven't done so already, please visit his YouTube channel and subscribe. If you haven't done so already, subscribe to our mail list at ripinrabbithole.com. You'll get our weekly schedule every Wednesday morning. It's going to share with you what we have in store for the weekend ahead. Right here on the very best of Common Sense Radio, the Ripon Rabbit Hole. Now, for many of you, the conversation ends here, but for the Ripon Rabbits, it's just beginning in the VIP 24-hour chat lounge at ripinrabbithole.com. If you haven't done so already, please make your way over and explore everything that site has to offer for you. But more important, that VIP backstage lounge, this is like where the most controversial discussions could take place at any moment, because whatever you want to say, you can say backstage. Without ridicule, I can tell you, it has been exciting. Visit us there at the Backstage 24/7 VIP Lounge at ripinrabbithole.com. Hey, I am so glad the weekend started. Let's get ready to rumble through the rest of the weekend as it continues on through Sunday night. Until we meet again, take care of yourselves and each other. Good night.
Unlocked and into the dark. Some things are better left unknown. And I'll never find you here, 'cause no one's ever Oh, what a widow, a peaceful spider. is clean, she's a sneaky hider. Hide the lies and the alibis. Oh, what a sinner. Is it in her? What's the truth in this riddle? Is love really just this simple? I can't seem to find my way in this world that never stays. What a widow, a peaceful spider. When the glass is clean, she's a sneaky hider. Hide the lies and the alibis. What a sinner. Is it in her? Is this real? Just illusion? I'm lost in wonderland of confusion. I'm lost in wonderland of confusion. Is this real or just illusion? Manifestation or a dark delusion? Is this real or just illusion? I'm lost in a wonderland of confusion.
Don't you wish that your weekend was longer than just 2 days? Well, if so, then you're in luck, because here on Ripon Common Sense Radio, our weekend begins on Wednesday. Yes, you heard that right. Our weekend kicks off every Wednesday at 7 p.m. Pacific, 10/9 Central, with Dark Wolf's Den, starring yours truly, Jerry the Dark Wolf. But that's where the fun has only just begun. Make sure you come back every Thursday through Sunday at 7 p.m. Pacific, 10/9 Central, for the Ripon Rabbit Hole Live Show, starring AJ the Ripon Rabbit. He dives into the archives of vocal legend Art Bell and brings those stories up to date. So make sure that you spend your extended weekends with the Animals Radio, Jerry the Dark Wolf and AJ the Ripon Rabbit, starting at 7 p.m. Pacific, 10/9 Central, every Wednesday through Sunday, right here on Ripon Common Sense Radio.